Hey, so what's going on YouTube family? My name is John Trey, and after doing a lot of videos, I drop a video every day, I feel like it was only right for me to finally come on and be able to explain clearly what this channel is all about, right? Because it's not just about one thing. I don't just have one niche, or I guess I do, right? And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, because my niche is about evolving as a man in general, period. Evolving as a man, right? And so with evolving as a man, there's a concept that I've chosen to adapt. And that concept that I've chosen to adapt, which I've learned from Crimson Cure, is the 10 life values. And I learned about these a couple of years ago, and I've been implementing them in my life. But now I'm at a point to where it's time for me to now showcase it and continue growing and continue evolving. And those principles, those values are called the 10 life values. And so I just want to go over all 10 first, and then I can go back through and touch on each of them very briefly afterwards. And so of the 10 life values, you have the first one, which is spirituality. And when I say spirituality, don't get that confused with religion, right? Like, we're talking spirituality. You have to know, I told you I ain't gonna go too deep into it first. Let me go ahead and go through all of them, right? So number one is spirituality. That's how you know it be engraved in me. Number two is health. Number three is family. Number four is appearance. Number five is dwelling. Number six is mobility. Number seven is education. Number eight is profession. Number nine is leisure. And then finally, number 10 is wealth. And so I choose to adapt the 10 life values because it's essentially a tool to measure your results. For me, a tool to measure my results as a man, to make sure that I'm staying on track as a man, to make sure I'm meeting goals as a man, checking things off my list as a man. Because one thing they always say is that what gets measured gets done, right? And so for me, this is the perfect thing for me to utilize. And now I can break down really those 10 things. That way you can be able to understand it, right? And so for instance, number one, spirituality. Don't get that confused with religion, right? Spirituality is way deeper than that. It's who you are. Like, who are you? What's your identity? Because if you don't know who you are, how's the world supposed to know who you are? Right? Then the second one, health. Health and spirituality are one and the same, because typically when your health is bad, your spirit is bad. When your spirit is bad, your health is bad. And so with health is important because I don't want us to get, and we should not want to get comfortable with being okay with allowing dysfunctional food to be able to enter into our bodies, into our vehicle that keeps us going, right? The third thing, family. Family is important because we want to make sure that we have a healthy relationship with our family, healthy communication styles with our family, right? Again, we don't want to normalize dysfunction. That's the whole goal of this, is not to normalize dysfunction. The fourth thing is appearance. And so appearance, you can take that metaphorically speaking or literally. You dig what I'm saying? And when it comes to the literal, obviously, if we look back at the 80s and the 90s, like, people were proud of how they looked. They were proud of being able to walk out into the world, smelling good, being groomed, happy about who they are, happy to showcase who they are. And then when it comes to the metaphorical standpoint of these things, it's when it comes to couples, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to marriages, like, the wife knew how to be able to go out into the world and hold herself down as a wife. The man or the husband knew how to go out into the world and hold himself down as a man or the husband, right? And I'm saying that because when it comes to appearance, it was understood, and needs to be back understood, and I'm gonna do my part to ensure that it's understood, that when you have two individuals have to collectively understand their responsibilities, their roles inside of this relationship. That's the only way that they're gonna be able to maneuver through the world, through society, and be successful at it, right? So that's where appearance comes in at. Then after appearance, you have dwelling. And for those who don't know what dwelling is it's the home. And again, using the examples of the 80s and the 90s, right? No matter what, I don't care if it was a shack. One thing we did know back then is when you walked into their homes, they took pride in their homes. They took pride in their homes. Actually, to be completely honest with you, the pride they took in their homes were almost as important, if not more important, than the integrity of the actual building structure itself. And again, that's why you could have walked into a shack back then. You could have walked into a home that was a fraction of the homes that we have now. And when you walked in, you knew you was in a place of love. When you tasted their food, you knew you was in a place of love. When you smelled that clean scent, you knew you was in a place of love. Like they took pride in that. And we need to get back to taking pride in that, right? So then after that, after dwelling, that's when you then get into the external. If you didn't realize everything we just mentioned right now was all things that were internal, right? So once you have those things together, then we start getting into the external. And that's where mobility comes into the equation, right? So then when it comes to mobility, mobility is not just a vehicle, not just a form of transportation, not just a car, truck, etc. Mobility is knowing how to move in this world that we're living in, knowing how to survive in this world that we're living in, knowing current events, knowing what's going on in terms of our governments, in terms of our politics, in terms of our local government, etc. Knowing how to maneuver, knowing how to eat, knowing how to provide, which takes us to that next one, right? Which is then education, because we have to be educated. And when we say education, education is not just a 9 to 5. Education is knowing exactly what's needed, knowing exactly what things we need to know, what things that we need to know for us on our ends in terms of making sure that we can do what our purpose is, or more importantly, to be able to do what our profession is, which is the next one, right? Which is number 8, profession. And that's important because when you're talking about your profession, that's when you start getting back to, and that's when you start having to go back to the original point, your spirituality. Who are you? Because once you know who you are, and once you know whose you are, now you know how you need to maneuver in this world. You know what your purpose is. And that's when we get into our profession, going back to number 8. Once you know your profession, that education is needed. So everything that you impute into your mind, everything that you're studying, that you're looking at, that you're working on, has to make sure it can be able to help provide you the things needed for you to be able to successfully complete your profession. And one of the perfect examples that I love how actually Chris McCure used too, when she was talking about, like if you're a banker, that's a job. So we don't want to confuse a job and a profession. When you're talking about, banking, etc., that's a job. But if you're talking about a neurosurgeon, that's a profession. Talking about a doctor, that's a profession, right? Because somebody had to spend countless amount of hours and they had to make a statement. And they had to stamp it and say that this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to leave my imprint on this world. I'm going to help individuals with their brains. I'm going to help individuals with whatever it is they're doing. A profession, right? But not to sit on that too long. And then going to number 9, leisure. And leisure is kind of towards the end, because with leisure, that's where you want to spend the least amount of time at. And I know, contrary to popular belief, I understand what society telling you today, the 4-hour work week, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or how to make money online. That way you can be able to just go around and travel the world 24/7 and do all that is cool. But at the end of the day, come on now, we're here for one reason and one reason only. Let's be clear on that. We're here for one reason and one reason only. And that's to be able to serve our purpose, to complete our purpose, our profession, whatever that is. And so when it comes to leisure, that's towards the bottom, and that's where we spend a little amount of the least amount of our time in terms of everything else that we're speaking on, because in that moment, that's a place to be able to recharge, to be able to refresh, right? To be able to just sit back and to be able to take all the weight off of you, and to be able to get everything that you need, get all the fuel that you need, refuel. And most of the time we spend that with our friends, with our families, with our loved ones, or in isolation by ourselves to allow God to be able to speak to us even more, so we can go back into the world and be able to give our profession some more. And then number 10, that's when we get to the wealth. And I know you're looking at things like, John Trey has wealth, number 10. But again, when we're talking about the 10 life values, right? It's not just checkpoints, it's a wheel. So when you look at it from that standpoint, we started with what? Spirituality. And then we end with what? Wealth. That's because those things are basically one and the same. Once you know who you are and whose you are, spiritually, it makes it easier for you to know what you're supposed to be doing, who you're supposed to be serving. which then by default makes you valuable. And once it makes you valuable, individuals will come to you because they see you as value and you have something that they need. And when you have something somebody needs, they're going to pay for that. That's where wealth comes in. So again, spirituality and wealth are one and the same. And that's how we get the 10 life values. And the best way for me to put this in terms of what my channel was about, that's what I would say that my channel is about. I would say that my channel is for sure about me evolving. That's why it's called Transcending with Attention. Because it's about me evolving. And then the question is, okay, so what blueprint are you utilizing to be able to evolve? The 10 life values. And so if that's something that you feel is important, if that's something that you feel like we need, if that's something, man, that you feel like you need, then again, follow my journey. And I'm not doing my journey to showcase what I am, or in better terms, to showcase or try to talk to you as a teacher. Nah, I'm a student. And so for me, if I'm a student, I want to make sure that while I'm learning, the best way for me to continue to learn is to teach. Because for me to teach, I have to make sure I can implement it. I have to make sure I can take the knowledge. I have to make sure I can understand the knowledge, comprehend the knowledge, and then I have to make sure I can execute on that knowledge. And in the midst of me executing on that knowledge, I then, for me as a pop quiz, as a test, teach the knowledge. That way I can ensure that I have it. The same way I was able to break down these 10 life values in depth, or briefly rather, and tell you exactly what each of them meant. That's because I had to sit with them. I had to sit with them, each one of them, and really focus on them and hone in on them and understand, okay, how do I want to create this channel? Even before I knew I was creating a channel, I still wanted to ensure and I wanted to know, okay, how do I want to be able to document my journey? What's the best way for me to document my journey? To where it's not just beneficial for myself, but for my family to come and for everybody else. Again, for my nucleus family and for my extended family. And that's why I say YouTube family. What's the best way for me to document my journey for myself as well as for my family to be able to utilize it and gain some type of wisdom from it, some level of understanding from it. And so for me, I'm choosing to go this route. And so hopefully that clarified exactly who I am, whose I am, and what my intent is with this channel. And if you feel like it's something that serves you, then I definitely recommend you hit the subscribe button, man, and follow me. And with that being said, I appreciate you. It's been yours truly, John Trey, and we out. Gone.